Hello and welcome to the channel. This is Literature Simplified, where I explain English literature in simple English. Today we're going to be studying an introduction to American drama. For BA in English Literature students of IGNOU, this is subject code BEGC-105, Block 1, Unit 1. This unit contains a lot of dates, so if you want to take notes, please keep a notebook and pen with you. Now let's get straight into it. In this unit, we'll examine the growth of American drama from the 17th century to the 1940s. Now we'll talk about an introduction to American drama. American drama began in the American colonies in the 17th century and has continued developing right up to the present day. In the 18th and 19th centuries, American drama was strongly influenced by British drama. In fact, until 1910, the New York City theater season staged more British plays than American plays. This happened mainly because Americans and British shared a common language and British plays and actors were easily available, which led to their dominance on the American stage. Although American drama started to diverge from British drama around the 1830s, most American playwrights continued to imitate British models till the early 20th century. Because of this continued imitation, many critics argue that American drama was truly born only after World War I with the work of Eugene O'Neill in the 1920s. By the end of the 19th century, American drama had clearly moved towards realism. This realism dominated both tragedy and comedy even in the 20th century. As the century progressed, American drama began addressing broader social issues including race, gender, sexuality, and death. Next, we'll discuss American drama around Arthur Miller. Let's talk about the beginnings of American drama in the 1600s and 1700s. The first permanent British settlement in America was Jamestown, established in 1607 in what is now known the state of Virginia on the east coast of the United States. A little over a decade later, in 1620, another group of settlers founded Plymouth Colony in present-day Massachusetts in the New England region of the northeastern United States. These settlements were geographically far apart, but they shared similar struggles. They suffered from harsh climate, unfamiliar land, food shortages, disease, and constant uncertainty about their survival. Many of the settlers who came to New England were Puritans. The Puritans were a group of religious people who believed that the Church of England had become too corrupt and insufficiently religious. They wanted to purify Christianity by removing practices they felt were sinful, frivolous, or morally distracting. Puritans believed strongly in hard work, simplicity, self discipline, and religious devotion. They viewed leisure activities such as theater, dancing, acting, all these things as morally dangerous because these things encouraged imagination, pleasure, and emotional excess rather than discipline and piety. Because of both the severe living conditions and the strict moral beliefs of groups like the Puritans, artistic activities such as drama were discouraged, which explains why very little theatrical activity took place in America before the mid 18th century. The first theatrical performance in America, produced in 1665, was Ye Bear and Ye Cub. The opposition to this play was so strong that its actors were formally brought before colonial authorities and questioned for violating moral and legal norms by enacting this play. During the 18th century, many American colonies passed laws banning theatrical performances. This was due to Puritan beliefs, especially their interpretation of the seventh of the Ten Commandments, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." In Puritan thinking, this commandment encompassed activities such as dancing and acting in plays, which were discouraged not because they were considered adultery in themselves, but because they were believed to encourage physical closeness, emotional excess, cross dressing, or the depiction of love and desire, all of which were thought to lead towards sexual immorality. However, this opposition did not last long. Gradually, the colonies became aware of their new cultural beginnings and began to see theatre as a way to improve intellectual and oratorical skills, which is the art of effective public speaking. As a result, 17th century colleges in several colonies, though they were initially hesitant, allowed theatrical activities, believing that these would help students to develop speech and communication skills that were useful in careers such as business and law. To meet this growing interest, the play Androboros was written by Robert Hunter, an English governor. Despite strong anti-theater laws in New York, Robert Hunter wrote and staged the play using drama as a political weapon against his opponents. This play established a tradition of political satire that American drama would continue to follow for the next 2 centuries. Other popular plays of this period included The Paxton Boys, The Trial of Atticus, and Robert Munford's The Candidates or The Humors of a Virginia Election. Before a large number of American written plays appeared, a group of British professional actors formed a touring circuit or theatre company in the 1750s. In the early 1760s, the group became known as the American Company. In 1767, they staged The Prince of Parthia, a tragedy by Thomas Godfrey. This was the first professionally produced play written in America. Next, we move on to drama during the American Revolution. During the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783, theatre became dangerous, illegal, and economically unviable in revolutionary America. As a result, many professional actors moved to Jamaica, which remained a British colony. It was economically stable and it was culturally receptive to theatre, with colonial elites actively seeking entertainment. In this revolutionary period, satirical plays were written either supporting British rule or then attacking British control of the colonies. One such play, The Battle of Brooklyn, written anonymously and pro British in tone, mocked revolutionary leaders such as George Washington. The American Revolution was a war fought between 1775 and 1783 between the 13 American colonies and Great Britain, which ruled them at the time. These colonies were under British rule but had no political representation in the British government. Despite this, Britain imposed heavy taxes, strict laws, and economic restrictions on these colonies. Over time, resentment grew among the colonists who believed that they were being ruled unfairly. This led to increasing protests and eventually armed conflict. The war ended in 1783 when the colonies defeated Britain and became an independent nation, later called the United States of America. The strongest American dramatic voice of the Revolution was Mercy Otis Warren. She supported the revolutionary cause in her plays. These plays were The Adulator, The Defeat, The Group, and The Blockheads. Another important play was Robert Munford's The Patriots. This play was significant because it took a neutral position. It criticized both sides of the conflict for their intolerance and thus achieved a more balanced dramatic character. Now we'll discuss drama after independence. By the mid 1780s, the professional actors who had earlier moved to Jamaica returned to tour America again. America had officially become a nation in 1783 after defeating the British colonial rule. The first important playwright of the new nation was Robert Taylor, who wrote what is considered the finest American play of the 18th century called The Contrast. This five-act comedy satirizes the customs of the American upper classes but follows the British comic format. Its structure, style, and comic techniques closely resemble those of British comedy, particularly the play The School for Scandal by Richard Brinsley Sheridan, showing that early American drama still relied heavily on British models of drama. Now let's look at American drama in the 1800s. In the 19th century, American drama was dominated by melodrama, a dramatic form that focused on strong emotions, clear moral conflicts, and sensational situations. Melodrama was introduced into American drama by William Dunlop, and it became the most prevalent dramatic form of the century. Dunlop is also credited with giving American drama one of its most important characteristics, which is dramatic conflict. Most of his plays were adaptations or translations of work from French and German drama rather than entirely original compositions. One of Dunlop's most important plays is Andre. The protagonist, Major John Andre, is a British officer during the American Revolution. In the play, Andre is portrayed as personally honorable and compassionate, even saving the life of a young American captain, despite the strong hostility of General George Washington, who was then commanding the American forces and viewed Andre as an enemy because of his involvement in a conspiracy to destroy an American garrison, that is, a group of stationed soldiers. The majority of plays written in America during the 19th century were produced primarily for commercial purposes. They were written to appeal to the mixed American audience spread across the country, whose main interest was watching performances, especially those featuring their favorite actors. As a result, most plays of this period were not published. They were meant to be performed rather than read, and because of this, many of them have been lost forever. One of Dunlop's important contemporaries was James Nelson Barker. He produced several well known works, including Marmion and Superstition. Superstition is a romantic tragedy based on specifically American situations. It is set in New England and explores themes of isolationism, bigotry, and intolerance. Barker also wrote The Indian Princess, which was the first American play to explore Native American themes and characters. Native American is the indigenous peoples of the Americas who lived there before European colonization. The play tells the story of Pocahontas, a Native American woman who married an Englishman. The most well known play dealing with Native American themes was Metamora by John Augustus Stone. The popularity of these Indian plays, which began in the 1820s, continued through the 1840s. I just want to provide a small clarification here. In older historical texts, Native Americans were often referred to as Indians or Red Indians. That term is no longer used today and is considered derogatory. In this context, the word Indian refers to Native Americans, the indigenous peoples of the Americas, and not to people from India. Now we go to American drama of the early 19th century. In the early 19th century, American drama began to shift its focus away from nationalist and political causes towards aesthetic values of Romanticism. Instead of using drama mainly to express national identity or political ideas, playwrights increasingly emphasized emotion, imagination, heroic characters, and poetic expression. During this period, Edwin Forrest, an immensely popular actor, played a major role in encouraging the writing of American romantic plays. His popularity and influence helped create demand for dramatic works that reflected romantic ideals. To understand this more easily, one can think of a modern parallel. Let's say when an actor like Shah Rukh Khan becomes strongly associated with romantic roles, then writers and filmmakers they begin to create stories specifically suited to that image. This in turn popularizes the romantic genre itself. In a similar way, Edwin Forrest's popularity shaped the kind of plays that were written and staged in his time. The best known American play of this period was Francesca da Rimini, a romantic verse drama written by George Henry Boker. Other important American romantic tragedies of this period included Brutus, The Fall of Tarquin by John Howard Payne and The Gladiator by Robert Montgomery Bird. These plays focused on the aesthetic ideals of Romanticism, but they did not help to develop a distinctly American form of drama. In 1828, Edwin Forrest began offering annual awards for new plays with American themes. The first play to receive this award was Metamora by John Augustus Stone that we mentioned earlier. However, no single type of drama appealed consistently to the American play-going public. Audiences were open to any form of drama, provided it was well performed by popular actors, much like audiences everywhere even today. By the mid 19th century, the popularity of Indian plays began to decline. Again, here we mean plays about the indigenous American people. The lampooning or mocking of these plays signaled that public interest was reducing and the genre gradually faded. At the same time, racial, social, and economic tensions in America were intensifying and would eventually lead to the American Civil War, which was fought between 1861 and 1865 within the United States. It was a conflict between the northern states known as the Union and the southern states known as the Confederacy. The war was mainly caused by deep disagreements over slavery, the rights of different states, and economic and social differences between the North and the South. It ended with the defeat of the southern states and the abolition of slavery in America. These tensions are powerfully represented in Uncle Tom's Cabin, a novel by Harriet Beecher Stowe. It's a novel that exposes the cruelty and injustice of slavery in the United States. Through the suffering of enslaved characters, especially Uncle Tom, the novel highlights the moral and human cost of slavery and strongly argues in favor of abolishing it. The novel was adapted for the stage by G. L. Aiken, and this stage adaptation became a major success. It was performed across America and continued to be staged well into the 20th century. Now let's look at American drama in the 19th century. The most popular dramatic genre in American theatre in the 19th century was melodrama. Melodrama is similar to what we see in popular Hindi cinema, where the heartless villain causes suffering to the heroine and she is finally rescued by a strong hero, usually at the last moment after he overcomes a lot of troubles. Melodrama typically dealt with issues related to family, social position, and wealth. These were concerns that were central to everyday life and easily understood by a wide audience. Its popularity with the general public was because of its use of stereotyped and easily recognizable character types and simple formulaic plots. These plots could easily be adapted to suit any setting, any character, or any event, making the genre highly flexible and accessible. This was the reason for its appeal, the qualities of familiarity and simplicity. Because of this flexibility, melodramatic plays could be adapted to different audiences, allowing actors to use their talents freely and draw upon a wide range of dramatic material. Some of the most popular melodramatic plays of this period were The Poor of New York by Dion Boucicault, Under the Gaslight by Augustin Daly, The Girl of the Golden West and the Heart of Maryland by David Belasco. The popularity of melodrama, which had begun in the 18th century, continued strongly throughout the 19th century. Now let's take a look at when realism started to appear in American drama. After the American Civil War, American drama began a gradual shift towards realism. Realistic drama focused on the portrayal of ordinary, humble life, the criticism of social conditions, and the creation of believable and lifelike characters. Concerned with realistically representing life, playwrights increasingly concentrated on middle class life and concerns, deliberately avoiding grand or sensational themes. Stage settings became three dimensional and realistic, and actors used natural, authentic sounding dialogue. Although melodramatic plots continued for some time, playwrights slowly moved towards psychological realism. This movement towards realism was strongly influenced by Henrik Ibsen, the Norwegian playwright known for his realistic treatment of social and psychological issues. Important realistic plays of the 19th century include Shenandoah by Bronson Howard, Hazel Kirk by Steele Mackay, The Mousetrap by William Dean Howells. Bronson Howard was noted for being more concerned with morals, meaning the social behavior and values, rather than morality in a narrow moralistic sense. Realism reached new levels in the last decades of the 19th century and early decades of the 20th century as playwrights increasingly addressed contemporary social issues. Notable works from this period include A Texas Steer, The Banker's Daughter, Henrietta, A Trip to Chinatown, Dan's Tribulations by Edward Harrigan, and The Old Homestead by Denman Thompson. And here the text refers to A.E. Hearn, but the playwright of Margaret Fleming was James A. Hearn, not A.E. Hearn. In this play, Hearn created a heroine similar to those portrayed in the plays of Henrik Ibsen. By an Ibsenesque character, they mean a woman who does not merely challenge social conventions, but she asserts her freedom as well within marriage. His plays are noted for their clarity, simplicity, and psychological depth. Now let's take a look at late 19th century, early 20th century American drama. Among the late 19th century dramatists, Dave Belasco, Steele Mackay, and William Gillette were closely associated with the business of theatre rather than only with playwriting. David Belasco was one of the most well known producers of the period, and he also directed his own plays. His play, The Girl of the Golden West, is set in rural California during the gold rush of the mid 19th century, and it reflects popular interest in frontier life. The gold rush refers to the period in the mid 19th century when gold was discovered in California, leading to a massive movement of people there hoping to become rich very quickly. This period brought rapid settlement, economic change, and social instability. Steele Mackay mainly wrote romantic melodramas. His most powerful play was Hazel Kirk, which is unusual because it contains neither clear heroes nor villains. Instead, the central theme of the play is family misunderstanding, and it is also notable for its more natural and realistic dialogue. During this period, playwrights increasingly used realistic portrayals of sensational subjects, blending melodramatic situations with realistic treatment. In the early 1900s, Clyde Fitch wrote The City, an entertaining social satire that used natural dialogue. The play explored the evils of corrupt business practices and drug addiction. Clyde Fitch is also regarded as the first American playwright to develop a subtle form of satire, moving away from the overt melodrama that was popular previously. As the First World War approached, that is from 1914 to 1918, American playwrights increasingly began to explore social tensions within American society. Important plays of this period include The Great Divide by William Vaughn Moody, A Man's World by Rachel Carruthers, and The New York Idea by Langdon Mitchell. These plays address social issues seriously while remaining entertaining for audiences. A major recurring theme during this period was the American family, its growth, its tensions, and its eventual breakdown. This theme continued to dominate the work of 20th century American playwrights as well. In the early 20th century, American drama experienced a new artistic awakening. A group of playwrights and artists formed an amateur theatre group known as the Provincetown Players. They were named so because they operated mainly in Provincetown in the state of Massachusetts. The aim of this group was to promote American drama and to stage new plays written exclusively by American playwrights. The work of the Provincetown Players set a new direction for modern American theatre, and it played a crucial role in launching the careers of Eugene O'Neill and Susan Glaspell, who were members of this group. Based on journalistic investigation, Susan Glaspell's one-act play, Trifles, was among the group's earliest productions. One of the play's most distinctive features was that its central character, the wife named Minnie Wright, never appears on stage, yet her presence dominates the drama. Eugene O'Neill's play, The Hairy Ape, was the first American play to introduce expressionism. Expressionism developed in Germany in the early 20th century and was a movement in the visual, literary, and performing arts. Instead of depicting reality as it appears objectively, Expressionism focused on expressing inner feelings, emotions, and psychological states. In Expressionist drama, the emphasis is not on realistic settings or external events, but how the world is experienced emotionally by the character. Reality is often distorted or exaggerated to convey fear, anxiety, alienation, or inner conflict of the characters. This approach strongly influenced Eugene O'Neill, whose plays explored the inner nature of human beings and the forces that shape and drive them. His characters frequently came from the margins of society, that is, people like laborers, immigrants, the poor, or socially isolated individuals who are often ignored by mainstream society. And for the first time in American drama, he made extensive use of everyday spoken language. Other prominent writers associated with this radical and experimental phase of American drama include John Reed, Louise Bryant, Max Eastman, Ida Rau, and Edna St. Vincent Millay. In the 1920s, the most important American plays were professionally produced on the New York City stage. The drama of this period was often sharp, bold, and exciting. Notable works of this period included What Price Glory by Lawrence Stallings and Maxwell Anderson. The story is about the nature of war and the personal rivalry between two soldiers in World War One. Several remarkable plays were produced during this period, including Strange Interlude and Morning Becomes Electra by Eugene O'Neill. Lightly satirical plays were also popular, such as Holiday by Philip Barry and End of Summer by S. N. Berman. During this time, Paul Green wrote Abraham's Bosom, which was significant for its inclusion of African American characters. Another landmark achievement was Showboat, a musical created by Oscar Hammerstein II and Jerome Kern, a famous composer and lyricist, respectively. Adapted from a novel of the same name by Edna Ferber, Showboat was the first American musical to fully integrate music with meaningful and continuous dialogue. The economic collapse of the Great Depression in the 1930s led to the permanent closure of many theaters across America. At the same time, the development of new sound technology gave motion pictures a voice, ending the era of silent films and making cinema more attractive to audiences. As a result, the number of theatergoers declined sharply during this decade. Despite this decline, a new wave of drama emerged in the 1930s that directly addressed economic hardship, left wing political ideas, and fears of another world war. So, left wing political ideas generally refers to beliefs that focus on economic equality, workers' rights, and the idea that society should protect ordinary people from exploitation by powerful businesses or wealthy interests. Clifford Odets wrote Waiting for Lefty, which debated the strengths and weaknesses of capitalism, and Awake and Sing, which captured the anxieties of American families during the Depression. Similarly, Lillian Hellman's play, The Children's Hour, reflected a strong social conscience. In the mid 1940s, some of the most powerful new American drama emerged in the works of Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams. Tennessee Williams contributed several psychological plays of disillusionment, including The Glass Menagerie, A Streetcar Named Desire, and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. In these plays, Tennessee Williams explores the inner emotional lives of his characters, focusing on broken dreams, fragile relationships, loneliness, and the painful gap between illusion and reality. Arthur Miller's modern tragedies, All My Sons and Death of a Salesman, combined realistic characters with serious social issues. During the 1950s, Miller's major work included The Crucible and A View from the Bridge, and his play, Long Day's Journey into Night, received the Pulitzer Prize posthumously. That means after he passed away. Tennessee Williams is mentioned incorrectly here. Among newer playwrights, William Inge gained recognition with Come Back Little Sheba, a realistic portrayal of everyday life. The late 1950s also saw the rise of African American drama, most notably with Lorraine Hansberry's acclaimed play, A Raisin in the Sun. A major dramatist of the 1960s, Edward Albee, wrote absurdist plays such as The Zoo Story and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Absurdist plays suggest that life does not always make sense, and they use unusual or unsettling situations to show this. These absurdist plays showed modern life as confusing and uncomfortable, looking at it critically without offering any comfort, and were influenced by European dramatists such as Jean Genet, Samuel Beckett, and Eugene Ionesco. The 1990s witnessed the return of two major playwrights once thought to have completed their careers. These were Arthur Miller, whose most influential works, as we have seen, were written during the 1940s and 1950s, and Edward Albee, who rose to prominence in the late 1950s and 1960s. Arthur Miller's Broken Glass and Edward Albee's Three Tall Women received widespread acclaim, with Albee's play winning the Pulitzer Prize. Miller's final play, Finishing the Picture, was produced in 2004, and Albee continued to offer sharp social commentary in later works such as The Goat or Who is Sylvia? Throughout the 20th century, realism remained the dominant dramatic mode. As the century progressed, new dramatists addressed broader social concerns, including civil rights and the devastation caused by the AIDS epidemic. By the mid 1990s and early 21st centuries, large scale blockbuster musicals dominated commercial theater in the United States, particularly appealing to younger audiences who were drawn to film, television, and digital entertainment. Economic pressures led to an increase in plays with single settings and smaller casts, making them less grand in scale but also more practical to stage. Many playwrights began writing with film and television adaptation in mind, helping their work to reach audiences across the country, while theatre gradually moved towards smaller and more experimental kind of plays. With this, we come to the end of this section of the unit that focused on American drama from the 17th century to the 1940s. The next topic we will be discussing is the life and works of Arthur Miller in a separate video in the same playlist. Please check that out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you soon in the next video.